it's closer sometimes there.
Okay, yeah.
No, so
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
So what's Pierce doing now? Where is he around?
He's working here in town and, just building, fixing his cars and building and stuff like that, so,
Cool.
yeah, he's
Yep.
just staying busy that way.
Good. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I always rave about that program. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And where did, Erica, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, she's at Air Force Academy. and
Oh,
she loves
okay,
it.
she was one of those,
Yeah.
okay, cause I knew we had a couple that made it up.
Yeah, Robin and Erica from that year.
Okay.
There's a STEM kid who just got into Naval Academy just from this year.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Very
she
cool.
loves it.
That's good. No, you guys are good. We're trying to stay too late tonight, but thanks for coming. And so, does everybody know? Have you met Letty?
We have mutual friends from the tri-team, I think.
Okay.
I recognized your name when on the email.
Okay.
So, yeah, Suzanne, and I wasn't here at the last meeting. I
Right.
got sick, so. Were you, you four were here? Okay.
Yeah.
And yes.
And then Cindy was here,
And
yeah,
Cindy,
she had a
okay.
conflict tonight. So,
There's a short possibility that I might have to leave early, but.
Well,
waiting for a text.
a lot of this could, okay, well, since we're a small group, can be pretty informal. Like Doug had a question about sort of how monthly expenditures, I could, we could look at the monthly bill list, I could pull one up and stuff like that. So, some of it, I have some stuff sort of short of going how we develop the budget. But if there's questions that get more outside of the budget, more just how we're running the district, we can talk about those things also. That's fine. So for today, the one thing that was mentioned last time was, how do we look at enrollment? How do we compare a little bit with like Lakeland and Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene? And enrollment is actually a pretty big deal when you get into developing your budget, because you get paid by how many kids you have by the state. And obviously, how many kids you have then also drives how many teachers you need to hire. So it really is when you're developing a budget, being able to come up with a good enrollment number that is going to drive the dollar number is pretty important. If you miss on the wrong side where you think you're going to have a lot of kids show up, and you build a budget to serve those kids, and then they don't, it's sort of trouble in River City, because now you got a double whammy. One, you're paying two, you probably have overstaffed, and two, and you're not getting the revenues. So it's like you're paying too much and getting less money. So it's a bad year. Yeah, I mean, in the big picture, that's where if you look at districts who really get into financial difficulties, it generally is relating to their salary and benefit costs and a reduction in revenues, either from a levy or a drop in enrollment. Like, a lot of people complain about growth, but I've been in districts that have been declining, and that's more difficult, honestly. You don't want to grow too fast either, right? You sort of want that happy medium.
But from a financial standpoint, that's more devastating. The
Yeah,
drop.
the drop is really, I was in a district, we had to close a school, and that is brutal. That is no fun, because it's pretty disruptive. But the school district had at one point about 4,500 kids, and it dropped down to 3,800. In the course of a year. That's 700 kids. That's a pretty big drop. And at some point, you have empty bill. You can't afford it. And then sort of how I go through doing enrollment projections. Some of this is super dry. So we can fly through it. I'll go ahead, and then I did have some legislative update stuff. If you don't want to see some of that things, because there's some new information coming out that really impact us at the district level, and sort of when you have my job, you sort of live it, because it really impacts what's going to happen as you develop the budget. But for here, if you guys start glazing over, we can go into some other topics. I will not hurt my feelings. So, real quick, so here is just a history of our enrollment, and you can see, and I did share this last time, that that drop, we had that 4,586, and then that was the COVID year, and there was drop. People went. One, we dropped in kindergarten. Some parents just chose, I'm not had my kids start kindergarten, so it really went back. And then other parents said, you know, they're going to Idaho Distance Learning Academy, they're gonna homeschool. They did some other online options, but then this year, when things sort of got back a little more back to normal, even in Lakeland, we were sort of the same the whole way through. You saw, you know, sort of where you would expect the trend line to go with the way our community's been growing. So 4,681 kids is the most kids that we've had enrolled officially. And during the year, we've had more. We've been over 4,700 snapshots in time. This is at the actual, eventually we get the official number from the state on when they're funding us, on their snapshot in time when they grab it, and that was the number. So that's, I use the same number throughout the year, so at least it's apples to apples.
And when do they grab that? Do you know when they grab it? Or?
Yeah, that's through the first, it's called the 10-week reporting period.
Okay.
It's from October, it's from the first week up to about the first week, so September to November 1 around.
Okay.
And then they take all that, but when we submit attendance and enrollment every day. Effectively, when we take attendance and enrollment in our system, that gets uploaded to the state every day. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say every day. We have like a October upload, we have a November upload, so, but the upload includes all that data. I guess it's not automatic.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we might have, let's say, they flesh it out, so let's say we have a kid that's going between us and K-Tech and Coeur d'Alene, you know, we have to sometimes say who has that, who's really that kid, or do we only get 0.2 of a credit of the student. The state's only gonna pay 1.0. You can't be more than one person, as far as their paying us is concerned. So they may give us a little bit, and Coeur d'Alene a little bit if it's a shared enrollment. That doesn't happen a lot, but K-Tech, it can happen. So that, anyway, there is some dual enrollment. Sometimes you get a dual enrollment with a charter school. Say a charter school, they're our student, and they're with STEM, but STEM isn't offering one class. So they might come to us for just a little bit. Sometimes there's an agreement that, okay, the charter school will pay us some money, and they just get the whole 1.0, or sometimes we'll each get a little piece of the pie.
Report it that way.
Report it. So sometimes when I'm definitely on reporting, when we're doing our counts, if they're a kid on our list, I'm counting, even though they maybe want to be a partial somewhere else. And that doesn't that really just at the secondary that happens. It doesn't happen very often in the other. But so when you do all that reporting, you know, sometimes some of that has to get fleshed out over the months. But this is pretty much our official number that we got when we got information from the state in February. So that'll be pretty solid. So how are those 4,681 kids split up in our district? And you can you can see it's not very good, but you know, our elementary schools are on the left. So I went alphabetical with Athol to Twin Lakes, then Lakeland Middle, Timberlake Middle, the two high schools, Mountain View and Reach. So it's actually a pretty even split between our secondary schools and our elementary schools as far as numbers. But you know, that's sort of how we're split up. You can see that Lakeland Middle and Lakeland High are definitely bigger than the Spirit Lake schools. And our elementary school sizes are pretty reasonable.
I didn't realize Garwood was the biggest school.
And used to not be. Right, and I'm going to show you something how that switched. Betty Kiefer used to be. And now Garwood is, you know, that growth around Lancaster and stuff like that, they're in the Garwood zone.
Yeah, and they're all going up, aren't they?
And they're all, yeah, you know, so that.
Well, and there's a weird little section in like Hayden, like
Right.
North Hayden area that's goes to Garwood. And
Right.
it's a weird, like,
Yeah, there's a
you
little
would think
chart.
they were in.
And we're trying to clean up that.
Elementary, yeah.
We're trying to clean up that boundary.
Yeah.
To
To
with
Coeur
Coeur
d'Alene.
d'Alene,
Like a
yeah,
wild-
our board worked with Coeur d'Alene to do that, and now it's at the state board level, and they move at their own speed.
So they've been proposed, so you guys proposed something to move that boundary with Coeur d'Alene?
Correct. Both Coeur d'Alene and I, to try to square it up.
Yeah,
And
make it easier.
we are getting some land out by Hayden Canyon Charter,
Mhm.
and then some of that land by Hayden that's right next to Atlas Elementary. We sort of squared that off at Giovanni Estates and stuff. So I think it was a good decision by, I mean, cause literally.
Kids live across the street from a school and they're being bused clear up to
They're
our
big-
schools,
yeah.
so it only makes sense.
So those new apartments will be actually, if the change goes through, those new apartments
Yeah.
will be part of Coeur d'Alene, not us.
Okay.
Right now, they're in our district.
Right.
But we would draw
Yeah,
that.
it's a funky little, cause you would see, cause I used to live in that area,
Yeah.
and so I would drive my kids up here because their dad actually lived in this district, but I would see school buses in the morning from Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, and Bratham, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, Post Falls said, you're right.
They-
Yeah, I saw them all three, and I
Because
was
Post
like,
Falls is
what the
right on,
heck?
their border is right on Hunter with
Mhm.
Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's sort of the distribution of the kids. And I'm gonna get just a little, comparison with the other districts, and then go into sort of our building capacity at a really quick level. So if you look, at public schools for Kootenai County, I guess there is, down by Harrison, there's the Kootenai School District, they're small, and Kellogg has a little bit of Kootenai County kids, and then of course we have the charter, STEM, and Coeur d'Alene Charter, and some others, and Hayden Canyon Charter, and the private schools, but for the, public schools, you figure Coeur d'Alene's 49% of the kids, Post Falls right around 30, and we're like 22. And that's been pretty consistent the last few years with the breakdown. I always think 50, 30, 20 for the size. And so how does that look by level? So I first went by high school. And so these are the enrollment numbers this year that I was able to pull from the State Department site. And so you can see that, Lake City High, Coeur d'Alene High, right almost equal this year. Lake City High used to have, it was over 1,600 for sure a couple years ago. And then Post Falls High, I think that's the high they've ever had. They're and you might have heard, they're looking to have to build a new school. And years ago, Lakeland was at the point where they had to make a decision, were they gonna do a bigger comprehensive high school down here, or build another, or have two smaller high schools. And so that decision years ago, about 1999, I think, when Timberlake was built, was made to have really sort of two smaller schools. And so that's sort of, where we definitely could have 1,300 kids and built a bigger building and been more comparable to our neighbors. So here, I didn't average the other one out because you can sort of see the average. We're averaging about 650. But this, so there's, we have Lakeland Middle and Timberlake Middle, and then Coeur d'Alene I made blue, and they have 3 middle schools, and Post Falls has 2. And you can see they're sort of similar in some ways, but if you look at the average for, definitely our average is 531 between our 2 schools, because Timberlake is smaller. And the Coeur d'Alene Post Falls average, you can see that they do have bigger buildings, because Lakes only has so much capacity, and the same with River City Middle, but, because of those bigger ones, they're having middle schools about 750, where we're around 500. So one of the things that people ask sometimes why, Lakeland has, as the community is, we are smaller, but we have tried to have a conscious decision of trying to keep some of our overall populations a little bit down.
Historically, like back to the high school when they made that decision, instead of going one big high school, what was the driving factor for that? Was that patron? Was that teachers? Was it geography? Was it just keeping things lower?
I think definitely the Spirit Lake community wanted a school up there
Okay.
because of the geography. I
Yeah.
think on that. I think so. There is that factor. I think at the time, for sure, that the district didn't want to have a big comprehensive high school.
Okay.
Well,
Cause
I
it's
shouldn't say-
cheaper, it's less expensive to run one high school.
Correct,
isn't it?
we would save significant, minimum $1 million a year, easy, just on, pretty much on staff. Because it's not, you do save a little bit on teachers, but you save on counselors, you save on principals, you save on custodians, you know, you save on, you don't have 2 athletic directors, you know, that's where the savings really comes in. So like Coeur d'Alene High with 1,500 kids has 4 or 5 counselors. Lakeland High has 3 or 4 counselors.
Yeah, same
So,
thing. Okay, yeah.
you know, that's where, I don't have 8 counselors, but Timberlake, but you have to have a counselor sort of per grade, or at least, or they split them out by alphabet.
Mhm.
You know, that's how you gotta run the school, right? And also I don't have class sizes. I guarantee you class sizes are higher at Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls at this level. Maybe not at the middle school, because if the building's big enough, you just have more classrooms. But it is smaller, and then this is a little bigger. So here is, you know, all the elementary schools. And you can see that, you know, we have a couple at the top, but definitely Coeur d'Alene has some of the biggest ones, and Post Falls is pretty consistent. Coeur d'Alene used to be quite a bit higher, and I don't even know if I have them. I might have missed it. They have one more school. No, they have Northwest Expedition Academy, that 489. That's the new school right there on Prairie. And before that, Ramsey was over 700 kids. Atlas was over 600 kids. Skyway is still over 600. They had some big schools. Hayden Meadows was near 600. So when they opened that school, that really helped Coeur d'Alene out a lot, compared to where they were.
And that's part of their district, huh? That Northwest Expedition Academy?
Yeah, that's
It's
part of
not
it.
a charter.
No, it's Coeur d'Alene Public Schools.
They call it that, like, is it a special model or something? to make it
It's supposed to be
different?
expeditionary learning.
Yeah,
And
okay,
so it
It's kind of
was,
like a magnet school or something.
yeah,
like that.
they have, everything's a magnet school
Yeah.
in Coeur d'Alene. You know, they started with Sorensen,
Right.
and then Ramsey had to be a magnet, then Fernand's a magnet, Northwest Expeditionary, everything's a magnet. Which is fine, actually, the principal, I don't know if he's still there, Bill is a really good guy. He used to be at Fernand. But, you know, and Sorensen is a cool school. It really is. It's sort of like a private school in a way. It is, they do a pretty good job there. If you look at the averages, you can see that 412, 410, which is actually pretty reasonable for an elementary school. Many people would argue that about 400, 450 is the perfect elementary size. 3 grades, 3 kindergartners, 3 first, 3 second, 3 third, 3 fourth, 3 fifth. At 25 kids across is right around 450. Because 3 classes gives you flexibility, you know, so, I don't know. But that average, it came down a lot, but you can see that because we have some smaller schools, our average is a little bit lower.
So you're saying the 450 is this number that people have just because it's, just the staffing and everything that goes into it, it makes it efficient?
I think it makes it efficient and instructionally so let's say you have a school that you only have 1 first grade teacher.
Right.
Because it's small, right? And now you have that teacher and for whatever reason, a kid that they're just not jiving. Well, if you have this school where you have the 3, you could maybe, you know, move some kids around and try to see a better fit, get more support. But when you have 1, you got 1.
You're stuck with
You're
one.
sort of stuck.
Yeah.
And that's why some people say that 3 is good, not so much. And you probably need, you know, you can have 1 counselor probably serve all those kids. If you have 1 counselor at a 300 kid school, it's a little more expensive, right? Per kid anyway. But, you know, definitely I think a lot of our schools right around, you know, 350, 300, it's a good size elementary school where kids definitely don't get lost, which is nice. You know, I've been in districts, I've been in larger urban districts where they have elementary schools that, you know, were 1,000 kids, you know, and there's, you know, and you have, you know, 300 kindergartners running around.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, a lot of shoes to tie. So, I put this in here again, we'll go by just so, okay, just to refresh it that here's where all our people are. And how does that compare to sort of how our, because this does get in the budget when it says, do we have enough space for our kiddos? And so, here is the capacity, and I've taken this from a previous presentation of our buildings. Now there's sort of two ways you look at capacity that, or I have with, you know, other groups, and there's a lot of philosophy on how much space you can fit in a building. One I call max capacity or design capacity. So if you just took every space and put kids in it, this is sort of what you can hold. And you know, every classroom is a classroom, and you just really maximize your space. Where there's also sort of a functional capacity where that, okay, but we need to have a music room, we need to have an art room, we need to have a couple special ed rooms where they don't have, you know, a full 22, 25 kid class, they might have, you know, 7 or 8. So the way we're using the building now, or in quote a functional way, is really the capacity that I think you need to look at to say, do we have enough room for the kids? So when you take more of those factors into case, then it's the green line where the capacity. So in other words, if you look at you know, Twin Lakes Elementary, you know, if you really took a lot of their flex spaces and you really maximized everything and had music on wheels and stuff like that, you can fit more kids in there. And we've had to do that sometimes. Betty Kiefer at one point was way over. And if you look like at Lakeland High School, you know, functional capacity we're using build now about 911, I mean there's room. But the moment that building, if you started getting near 1,100 kids, Lakeland High's that building's gonna be full. But you know, but right now, as far as just room, there's room for our population. And if we look, now this was where we are right now. And so, or actually this is where we are right now. So you can see that at the elementary schools, you know, we're actually in pretty good shape. Garwood's a little over their functional capacity. And Betty Kiefer is our biggest building as far as capacity. But we're doing pretty good. Lakeland Middle School, you know, they have more room there, even though part of Lakeland Middle School, I could reduce that capacity. Right now we have our tech offices there, taking up 2 classrooms. Arguably, I could reduce their capacity to 600, about 600, because really that's taken away, let's say, 2 classes of 25, the way we're using that building now.
Because you're not using it for instruction.
No, and we need to have the tech office, and that's where the fiber comes into. So I probably should do that to reflect that, because they're starting to get pretty full.
Yeah.
Or I mean, their capacity is 778, it'd probably reduce it to about 700, and that would better reflect that they're getting closer. Timberlake Middle School, you can see right now that the building, it's not that big of a building really, it's a nice building, but it's not, square footage wise, it's not huge. It has capacity about 350, and that red there is, we added our first portable ever with 2 classrooms. So you can see that even with that, we're right at about capacity, at 309. And then the other buildings, I threw Reach in there, there's really not a capacity since it's sort of online, but I just wanted to count for the kids. So, even though they do use some space for meeting with the teachers at the food service building that we've used for instruction before too, for other programs. Here I wanted to show you from this is the year before COVID. So sort of that 4,586. And this gets into the capacity. If you look at like Betty Kiefer, they had 475 kids. Garwood had 422. Twin Lakes had, almost 339. You can see Spirit Lake was over. Spirit Lake were using the gym for music. So what happened? But Lakeland High School, junior high at the time only had 467 kids, and Timberlake Junior High School only had 287. We moved the 6th grade into those buildings. So by moving that 6th grade to the middle schools, it was sort of pretty necessary because we were running out of room at elementary. It's given us a little bit of time at elementary. Now, it has put pressure now on Timberlake Middle School up north. But definitely Lakeland Middle School had capacity for the 6th grade, right? So I was just sort of showing you that shift is how we're using our building, and that grade shift. I think there was 2 factors. One, I think there's instructional reasons that was recommended to make that move, but there's also just the physical reasons. So I just any questions on that? I just sort of showing you enrollment, sort of how it impacts. So what do we think we're going to get for next year? So I'm going to project for budget, after I've looked at stuff, that we're going to be probably, when we get that report out next February, I'm saying 4,751. And I just picked it out of a hat. No, that actually is about, I say here, roll the dice. Oh man, 7 did not show it, 711. So I am gonna go to the core. Well, let me escape out of this. So this, we don't have to spend a lot of time on. Because it's pretty boring. But we do look. So what I do when I'm looking at enrollment, you look at a lot of factors. One, if we're growing, but I take a look at, I go back X amount of years. I go back 6 years, and you take the enrollment from, each year, and then you say it's a survival rate. So it's like how many kindergartners survived and made it to 1st grade. So here we had 256 kindergartners. We had 293 1st graders. So we actually had 114% more 1st graders as that group moved through. Mm-hmm. You can see here, just so this is when the district went to all-day K. So we used to have about this many kids, and the moment we went to all-day K, we had 310 and 330. Oh, wow. Because parents weren't, some parents would say, for half-day kid, I'm gonna go to another, maybe private school that is offering all-day kindergarten.
Or closer to work.
Or closer to work, because
and
the half-day, correct.
They can't do the half-day.
Yeah, so when we went to full-day K, our numbers went up. This is COVID. Okay, this is the COVID year. This when COVID people, that was our big drop. So survival rate. But then you can see this year when it sort of came back to what we expected. Yeah. So the spreadsheet sort of calculates those survival rates, and then I take, okay, what's the average over 6 years? What's the average over the last 4? What's the average over the last 2? Now this year COVID sort of messed the model up. But since we sort of got all those kids back, it will average, right? Mm-hmm. So it's probably not too bad. This model, when you look at projections, really is good for looking forward about 6 years. It sort of falls apart after that and gets too aggressive. But I mean, the whole state of Washington uses this model for their school construction and program, and to try to figure out who's going to need the building first and to help. And so it can be pretty accurate. So I look at that.
So why wouldn't you just disregard the COVID year? How would that skew?
Well, I could disregard it. I was thinking about it.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking though that would I have had all that? I wouldn't have, but I had 300 more kids this year. So I think it's going to average out.
Okay, yeah.
Because we sort of got, so I don't know if we would have went from 486 to 4,700, we might have went to 4,650, then to 47, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
That was sort of why. And
Taking one leap instead of taking steps to get to
Right.
the same
Okay.
place.
And I did look at a roll-up. That's pretty tiny. Where I take the actual enrollment and I just move them up. So this goes to 310, this goes to 308, 386. So we're just taking the numbers and moving to the next grade, and you drop off here. So we actually, that model says we're going to go down because we have a pretty big senior class.
Senior class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to look at the bubble and the roll up, but the only reason you don't look at the roll up only is that it's not accounting for new people coming in and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So a lot of times that percentage over time is a better measure. And I take all that information and sort of, and I sort of just, here's my enrollment. If I did a roll up, 2, 4, 6, and what's the average of all the models?
So the 2, 4, and 6 are based off of those percentages, those average percentages from the other one. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm sort of, right, and I sort of roll it through for the next year. And, yeah, so like the 2-year, I mean, I copied them, shows that's what it's going to be for next year, and then if you take it forward.
Gotcha.
It usually starts falling apart right about that 6, 7 years, and then these I discount. But
So it's good looking back 6 years and it's good looking forward 6
usually
years, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. And
That's interesting.
I've had like consultants gone through this process where they look at a lot of data, and they'll get, you know, county data and birth data, and they'll do some other linear regression analysis and stuff like that. There's a lot of different ways to look. Generally though, if you're in a growing community like this, all the models are going to show, you know, and it's just sort of what's the degree of the growth.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny, when I worked at Coeur d'Alene, I did this. They had a drop from 5th grade to 6th grade. If they had 100 kids in 5th grade, they had about 89 or 88 in 6th. So their 6th grade dropped like 12%. And then their 9th grade bumped that 12% back. And you know, what is going on here? This isn't right. And I look at
Yeah.
numbers and I do a typo, and what it was Coeur d'Alene charter. And,
Oh, right.
and so so at Coeur d'Alene, a lot of kids try Coeur d'Alene charter and they
Yeah.
go there. And so
Yeah.
it drops their 6th grade, and they do it for 6, 7, 8. And then they make the decision, am I going through high school or not? And a lot come back because they don't want the rigor, or they want the sports, or whatever. It's just sort of interesting.
Interesting.
So so
Yeah.
every district can have some of their weird
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So do
anomalies.
we have something like that with STEM? Because there is that.
We had a
Like the seventh
historical
grade.
drop, and I'll go back to that. When they first came on, part of the reason we dropped in attendance was because of STEM.
Yeah.
The recession happened, that hurt, and STEM at the
Oh,
same
they were the
time.
same time.
So if STEM wasn't there, our 4681 we'd be over 5,000,
Mhm.
right? Because there are about 400 kids, aren't
Yeah.
they? Yeah. So, in a way, STEM's helped. Well, as far as from a pure, from capacity wise, STEM
Yeah.
STEM has
Yeah.
helped us.
Yeah, because if they weren't there, we'd have some big problems right now.
Well, yeah, we would have,
We'd be bursting
we-
at the seams
we'd
at
have
every
more-
school, yeah.
yeah, it would definitely be bursting, so.
So when you, so then when you go back and you look at your actual versus projected, what you're doing here is pretty accurate, or you wouldn't keep doing it, right?
Right, no,
It
it's
works.
usually pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, COVID,
Yeah,
nobody
that was-
could have did that. But then I sort of look at the average and I'm saying, you know, is it gonna, and I am including, we have about 30 special ed, pre-kindergarten kids that mostly at Twin Lakes, that we have to serve that population by law, by the Individual Disabilities Education Act. And so we get funded for those kids, so I do throw these in the numbers because it's a funding number. I'm trying to generate $1 is what I'm trying to do through this. And so that's why I said, I do have a total, just K-12, but the PK-12 I add, I have, this number in here. And like that 4681 includes those preschool kids. So, when you look at all the, 4750, 4772, 74, the average is low. So I sort of look and say, what have we been growing? If we took COVID out, we were growing anywhere from 1% to 2% a year, Lakeland was, where it's like the slow, steady growth. 4,750 is almost 1.5%. So I said, that's probably not a bad number. And so I did the 4751 because that's exactly 1.5%. I'll add one. But anyway.
And there's no reason to think that what's happening here with the growth, that it would be faster even.
It could be.
It could
But
be.
I don't want, but as I'm developing a budget,
Yeah.
I don't want to shoot the moon either, right?
Yeah, okay.
So that's,
Mhm.
so I think it's going to be reasonable. We're going to have steady growth and we're not going to be going backwards, but a lot of times, I don't have to go through all the effort. I could just say, 1.5%, let's go. But it's probably better to look at the numbers, try to have a little analysis behind it to see,
Yeah, to justify your.
you got to justify it, and is there a
Yeah.
method behind the madness, and what's really happening, and it does help to look, because then if you didn't, like at Coeur d'Alene, if I never ran the numbers, I would have never noticed that weird thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's that?
Mhm.
So if you look at, I think I go back to. So if you look at all the trend lines, this is the 4-year, the 2-year, 6-year. If you look out to 28, 29,
Oh, really widens out.
it does. So the 2-year, because of that COVID year, you can see there's a flattening of the way the cohort rolls through. The 4 and 6 year, the COVID year isn't weighted as heavily, and you can see the trend line is a little higher. So probably, if you said, will we hit 5,800? I don't know, you could by then, but definitely probably closer to 53, 54, 55 would not be surprising, right? As you're sort of looking out. So as we're looking out towards facilities,
That's what you kind of have.
you're sort of looking out that you had some, if we keep having some of these houses growing and things like that, we will have, 1.5% is about 80, 90 kids every year. Well, 5 years, there's 400. If you keep growing like that. All right, so that's all I had on enrollment. I know that was sort of long, but the reason, and that's all I have with this one, that is such an important thing, is how we get paid. And I did, last time we went through, I sort of went through the state funding form and stuff like that, but I don't know if you guys want to go through this. There is, I'll show a couple things. this is a spreadsheet that the state gives us every year that we actually have to include in our budget document we send down to them. And it's estimating how much the state's gonna give us. And in the funding formula, they convert kids to what they call units. And a good way to think of a unit is a classroom, for lack of a better term. We get funded for 213 classrooms, and you get X amount of teachers and principals and things like that. So I based budget this year on 213 units. That's based on, at the start of the year, we're going to be funded on 200, or on attendance, not enrollment. They used to, I showed you those enrollment numbers, but Idaho always funded on attendance. So it wasn't just how many kids that you had, did they show up every day. So since you're getting funded on who was there that day, not who's enrolled, you got less money because not everybody shows up every day. The average for Lakeland's has always been about 95%. You could figure in pre-COVID years, for every 100 kids, 95 would show up that day. From a variety of reasons, 5 wouldn't be there.
Is that pretty typical percentage?
That was actually better than Coeur d'Alene. Real similar to Post. It was actually sort of the statewide average. We were right there. Maybe the state was a little below. COVID has dropped, but this year we're sort of holding in there. There's been times where some schools has like 80%, 80, 75, if something's going through. But for the most part, it's been right around
Typically like
93.
a bug going through the school, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
October
Yeah.
10th.
Yeah.
Actually, in the state, on their recommendation, when you build your school calendar, they recommend the Monday or the Friday before hunting season. Don't have school.
Yeah.
Your Priest River, have your curriculum day that day.
Right.
Now, teachers may not show up to curriculum day either,
Right.
but right, because if you have that, because when they calculate your funding, if you have that low attendance day, that it hurts you in your average.
And it's excused and unexcused absences. It's just, it doesn't matter. Like,
Does not matter.
Yeah.
Whether they're there or not,
Yeah.
butts in the seat.
Who's actually.
Yeah.
in school.
And so we also get funded, so that drives $2 One, the state gives us a thing called discretionary funding, where for every unit, we get a dollar amount. And so 213, that's how much. So for budget, I said that's what the state's gonna give me. And then then how many staff are they gonna fund us at their rates? And so that's their staff rate. Benefit apportionment means like retirement, Medicare, Social Security, mandatory benefits.
Wait, and the 213 where did that come from? Enrollment numbers?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have that enrollment number. So when I did my previous budget, I budgeted for about 4,500 kids, and they're gonna use attendance, so that's gonna generate. I came down to this this funding unit. So we actually got funded in the COVID year. We earned 220 units, 221. I went down the next budget year because we were funded by enrollment when COVID hit. They changed the rule mid-year and sort of saved us because we shut down. We shut down in March. We didn't report any attendance. I mean, I guess we had, but you know what I mean? It was a mess. So the state just said, just do
Because
it.
kids weren't physically in the
Yeah,
schools.
so the state
during
just
that.
made it, they just changed it.
The state board just said use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had
Enrollment
it.
instead of attendance.
And so this year, as COVID went, they extended the rule for another year. So now
Okay.
I built my budget on attendance. Now they're going to pay me on enrollment. And so anyway, I'll show you the dog line. I'm going to show you that impact and why your enrollment number is so important. Because let's say I budgeted 225 units, but I only earned 213. but I hired all those teachers. By state law, once you hire a teacher, I have a contract with them. I can't, I mean, at the end of the year, depending on how many years they've been in, you can't just let them go. It's against law. You have to at least get through, so you sort of own your teaching staff throughout the year. So you know, that's a big decision when you're going. So anyway, from the state through this, what they call their sort of foundation program. We get other monies from the state with other programs. But, you know, sort of the big money from the state, the budget was 25.3 million. So here is what actually happened. Because they went to enrollment, we earned 238 units, because we've had the most, and attendance didn't matter. That means on my 29,542 per unit, I'm going to get 7 instead of the 6 and change, or whatever it was. I'm funded more teachers. I'm funded more at their rates, and I'll show you how that works. The transportation, that doesn't involve the enrollment, it's a different thing. But anyway, so the total I'm going to get from the state, when we look at that, to compare apples and apples, 27.8 compared to 25.3. So the district right now, we are going to get $2.5 million more than budget. That is not a bad thing. So people will ask, well, what happens with that money? Well, we've earned the money in proportionate, so it was every year in general fund, you know, you look at the end of the day, after you have your audit, you look at how much money did you bring in, how much did you spend, and if you have anything left over, then that's what we call our fund balance, or your savings account. If you flip the other side, which happens, you have that, you know, you spent 30 million, you only brought in 28, well then you ran a $2 million deficit that year. If you had a fund balance of $5 million, well you could afford it, right? You just took 3 million out of your savings effectively, or the 2, and you're down to 3. So this year we're gonna add to our fund balance, there's no doubt, because of, this isn't the final number. We actually don't know, I don't know my final number till after the school year. We have more attendance reporting, we have other factors that will come in, and that number will adjust, but
It's approximate.
it's gonna be pretty close to the ballpark. I mean, they've already paid me 24.
Oh, okay.
Of the 26 that you.
Of the 27 I'm owed now, but I budgeted 26, so
Right.
that's why I was
Yeah.
at that 83,
Mhm.
because I didn't think I'm gonna get 27.
Mhm.
But, I mean, and that, I've talked to a couple other districts, Lake Pond Ray's in the same place, where they budgeted pretty conservatively, and it's gonna increase to their bottom line. So, you know, at that point, then that allows you to use those dollars, where if you're in financially not a good spot, maybe it gets you in a good spot. If you're already in a pretty good financial spot, maybe it gives you dollars to do one-time expenses. You know, a lot of times on your savings account, you don't wanna, like just a personal finance, I don't wanna base my mortgage on my savings account. I wanna base it on my income. So, but my savings account, maybe I can go buy that 4-wheeler I wanted, or my boat, or something like that. So if we get a larger fund balance, then the best way, well, at least from the finance director's point of view, is can we get one-time things, as opposed to if I have this big fund balance and I put a lot into ongoing costs, like salaries and benefits above, well, you know, that's an ongoing cost, and maybe I can't afford it 5 years down the road. Because I hate, and organizations, at least school districts, if you do move forward with salaries and benefits, and we need to do that, especially with some of our classified staff, the way cost of living is and stuff is crazy. But you don't wanna go backwards, I mean, you wanna make sure that what you do is sustainable over the years, that's all. Because, you know, Lakeland had to do it, Lakeland had to freeze salaries and move people backward during the recession, and it's just not fun. You'd rather at least be able to stay where you are and move forward. So that, now the state has determined in legislation whether they're going to extend the enrollment or go back to ADA. So on my budget, before I really start crunching numbers on how much money we think we're gonna get from state, that has to be decided. I think they're gonna stay with enrollment another year. So I'm gonna budget close to that 238 number. If-
Okay, and that's what you were talking about last
That
night,
unit.
where you are trying to figure that, and then it's going through the legislature right now?
Yes.
Is that what, okay.
Right, because they haven't finished
So-
their session yet.
Okay.
If they don't extend the enrollment rule or make it law, then I'm gonna take that 238 and say, okay, I have to go back to what an attendance number would be and knock that back down, and it'd probably be about 225
Okay.
because of the attendance and, so, but you can see with that units, I mean, that's a chunk of change that, and so now it depends on how, but if we consistently as a district, we're now at 238 units, and we're able to keep our staffing where it's at, or maybe add a few positions, I mean, we really do have, capacity to, take some of the staff who are making $12 an hour and get them up and do some of those things that we probably have to do. I mean, it's brutal right now to try to recruit staff. And I think, I know that,
It's
Randy.
all over the county.
Yeah, Randy works for the city of Post Falls, I'm sure they're challenged also, and,
So what, for the legislature, like, what are some of the yays and, so, cause obviously going by enrollment is, more helpful to the districts.
right.
So what are the, representatives saying, like, why wouldn't they want to? Is it it's a fiscal thing, or is there anything
They
philosophical
didn't wanna,
about it?
yeah, they didn't wanna pay for kids that weren't showing up to school.
Yeah, okay.
That was the philosophical. And so the funding enrollment, so that whole ADA, that's just been in Idaho code they rewrote this funding formula in the 90s, the way we go about it. It's not terrible, except they just underfund the formula.
Right.
Oh, okay.
But it's always been based on attendance, where like Washington's enrollment.
Okay, so yeah, I was gonna say, is Idaho unusual that way?
I-
Most other states?
No, I know that California they were enrollment, but they sort of went to an ADA model. They started clamping down a little more, saying, no, if they're not showing up, we're not gonna do it. So every state's a little different.
Okay.
I think enrollment's more fair, just because you don't have, I'm not hiring on attendance, I'm hiring on enrollment. So, if I have a class of 28, and okay, one day but it sort of averages, they only have 26 because of the 5%, I still have to hire that teacher. Even though a couple kids are gone that day, right? So enrollment I think is a more fair way, and if they thought it got too expensive, they could adjust maybe some of the dollar amounts over
Much lower.
too much, no.
Right.
So at this, where am I at? So at this point, I can get into, it's getting 6:30. I could go into some of the questions that Doug had that I didn't prepare, but I can pull stuff up real quick since I have my laptop. I could go a little bit into what the legislature is doing right now, which it was gonna do, because my actual work on the budget as far as really building it, it's sort of hard for me to do until the legislature's done with their work. Because I don't really know what, and they did for us, school's budget, they did sort of wrap things up probably today. So I'm gonna get information pretty soon, and we'll start building how much money we think, and then I start, unless I'm given direction from my superintendent or the board on certain priorities. A lot of the building the budget is status quo.
even though it's not status quo, it's like, okay, we have the staff that, and the number of positions that we think we're gonna start with. And I know I have, you know, X amount of teachers, so I take the teachers I know and I would say, well, they're gonna move to the next step. You know, or if they, you know, another year experience, they get a little bit more money. And the teachers that aren't gonna be here next year, whether they retire or resign, and then we sort of take them out. But we keep them as an open position and sort of put an average, you know, cost for a teacher. And we do that with other staffing. So you sort of build your staffing based on, okay, we're gonna maintain our program.
Yeah, cause there's a lot you know.
Right, there's a lot you know, right.
that you-
Exactly. And then, you know, some staffing school has different pots of money all over the place. You know, they make it more complicated than we probably have to, but some teachers are paid from federal funds, some are paid from state funds that are, that have to be used in a certain way, and so you have to identify those people on those, or at least, if you don't know if it's open, at least you budget the dollars.
Yeah.
So what's an example of a federal fund teacher? Is it, it's just something that's from a grant or something?
Yes, so we have, outside of, you know, all the COVID money that's come our way, because that's actually been pretty significant. Like I went through the American Reinvestment Act, or what George Bush and Obama did that during the recession, and that was a lot of money to schools when, you know, 06, 07, 08, or around there. Nothing like this. I mean, the feds have given our a lot of money. I mean, part of the reason Idaho, the state, is in such good shape is they got a bunch of money too at the federal level, and they're using that to do some of their initiatives. There's no doubt. So, but outside of the COVID dollars, we have really two grants. We have federal special education, the Individual Disabilities Education Act. We get about $800,000 a year, and it's all staff. So it helps pay for some of our special ed teachers. Then we have what they call federal Title I. And Title I is a program to help you know, socioeconomic, you know, kids in lower income. And so again, for us, it's right around $800,000 every year. And that funds some teachers, a few teachers, and then usually paraprofessionals. You know, some aides that help with instruction and stuff like that at the elementary level. We're already using that at the, we do get a little bit at Mountain View, but not for secondary. So those are the two federal grants that sort of are attached to.
So they're coming from a different pot of money.
Yeah, actually with those dollars, they're their own fund. So I actually I build that budget different. I say federal dollars are coming in. I have so much, like when I build budget, a lot of times I might have a Title I teacher, and then the next year they go to a regular classroom. So sometimes I don't know the name of the person. Not that we're even having it's just they're moving, you know, things on the deck. So I'll just know that we're gonna budget X amount of salaries and benefits, and then in September, you know, sometimes I do have to move things around on who's actually in that seat. But for budget, we know that we're gonna, you know, have 650 in salaries and 150 in benefits generally, and a little bit of materials and supplies, but it's very small. Same for like the federal special education. You know, I try to fund a couple teachers at each school, so it sort of spreads the wealth. Since you're mandated to do it anyway, if we didn't get the federal dollars, we would have to do it on special ed. So you would have to, I mean, find the resources somewhere and eventually do an opportunity cost. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's where they got. But for the budget for the state, they actually. I'm gonna zoom, I guess.
I'll be waiting for them to post, and it'll probably be in a few weeks, but fairly close. So this is last year. They post like this template, salary-based apportionment. So this is what I'll use to estimate how much money I'm gonna get this day for my salaries. And so it's based on the law that will have passed, because dollar amounts change by the legislature, and so you sort of have to have the updated template. But when we get some of these pages, we get appropriations, you know, a summary of different things. So when we get this information posted for this year is when I really can start working on the budget. So as far as nuts and bolts and maybe showing you guys the numbers that I'm doing and stuff like that, but it ends up being a sort of a crunch, because I don't get this till April and I have to have it done really by May. It's a lot of work.
So that, yeah, they have a deadline for like a month?
Yeah, a month, yeah. So, and like and what part of, you know, so like, you know, we have a fairly new board. And some have expressed, well, gee, it comes so fast, I don't see it, and I sort of get that, I understand that. But it's, you know, I guess I didn't write the rules of the game. It sort of is what it is, as you start building it. And the thing is that if you did have to make major adjustments throughout the year, you can do that as an organization. You can sort of redo the budget and say, okay, we know more. But I was going to show you, I showed this a little bit last time. But like the big one is this, and this is really tiny, is this salary-based apportionment. And what that shows you is here's that 213 number. Remember I told you about when I was building the budget. And so this spreadsheet, I put in some data. This is like the end data. This 213, what it drives is how many, see this is staff allowance, how many positions I'm actually funded. So if I increase this to 220, now I'm getting 224 teachers instead of 217. So it does, eventually it does drive the dollar amount. And so what happens with this spreadsheet is that teachers land what they call in the career ladder, which is really the state salary schedule. So if you're a teacher who's a P3, they're going to give me $46,681 for really like a 6-year veteran teacher. That's the pay scale from last year.
And that's statewide, it's the 5 state.
Right, so this is this, I don't have to pay them that. This is what they fund me at.
Oh, right.
Okay, so our salary schedule doesn't look anything like this. Our salary schedule is traditional, where, and I could pull that up for you, where we have more years of experience, and then if you have a bachelor's plus 12, bachelor's plus 24 credits, a master's,
And every district has their own of that, pretty much,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
just.
Right.
Okay.
And
Because
some,
that's, you
Yeah, 'cause it's area.
determine that based on the district's, contracts with their
right.
interest-based budgeting, so.
Yeah, and so we have our own salary schedule. Coeur d'Alene's is like similar, but it's different. Every district is a little bit different. and like in Washington, they do have a state salary schedule, and they have to follow that, but then people usually tack on like extra days and stuff for additional compensation. But this is the funding formula, and it also, they fund different pots. So what that does is it gives me the average salary of what they're gonna fund those 217 teachers at. So they average it. So my average for teachers, so it drives $11 million of funding. So this average, again, when I'm trying to figure out budget, that's a guess, right? Because sometimes I don't know exactly where people are gonna land.
So you go in and kind of just guess?
Yeah, I
Levels?
definitely take our actual staff that I know is coming back and I put them in. But
Okay.
then let's say we have 25 open positions.
They could be new or they could be.
I'll put
They may have a master's, they may have a
Yeah.
bachelor's,
Right.
you don't.
So I'll throw them in. I'll throw some at the new, some at the middle, and maybe a couple at the high. But most of our hires are going to be on the newer level.
Right.
Which, as you put them in, then drops your average for funding. So you definitely don't want to say everybody's coming in at the top, right? Because then you're probably overestimating your revenues. And then, again, this is number is pupil personal staff, which is counselors, and they're funded similarly, but they do have a different line. And then this is your administrator line. And over here is non-certified, your classified line. So last year they were giving us $23,260 per classified for like a custodian. Doesn't count bus drivers because they're funded differently, but custodian, parapros, building administrative assistants, parapros. That equals about $11 an hour for one person, is what they fund us at. And they only give us 79 positions, but we have about 140. So we're underfunded in teachers. We average probably, our average pay is at least 55, 56. Probably we have a pretty veteran staff. For teachers, but you know, that's definitely a big part of the gap in state funding where we fall behind. So
And this is the state funding for teachers, like for example, teacher salaries, it's just everybody across the board, whether you live in Boise or here
correct.
or, right? Okay, so it's not.
Yeah, the funding formula is the same.
Okay.
Exactly. So here you can see that if I would have budgeted 238, you know, then the dollars from the spreadsheet, I probably was, where's the total? Doesn't really total all that because it doesn't go, would have been pretty darn close to that 27, 27 included 1.54 million from transportation that's not on this sheet. And this doesn't include the discretionary, that other stuff. But anyway, I guess because this is such a large part of our budget, and I took probably too long on the enrollment, is just showing you like, really, coming up with that enrollment and having a good number is really important as you're sort of driving everything else, because this is where the resources are, really where it comes from. So I don't think I could get into more legislative stuff. I'll leave it open on the table. If you wanted to see a couple of our bill lists and stuff like that, I can show that to you. We can adjourn for the day. I mean, I don't know, a lot of this is sort of like more philosophical than nuts and bolts, but I can, I know Doug had a question about some of the other stuff, so I'll leave it on the table.
Either way, I mean, yeah, just if we'd address it anytime, that's kind of where my interest is.
Your interest is, well, let's take a look at that then. Let's actually go. yesterday. So here, just so you can see, it's sort of an ugly sheet, and the board has to suffer this every month, which I apologize.
It's not pretty and colored.
It is not pretty and colored, and it's very busy, and it's, so we spend money in schools two ways, or the way we categorize them. One is called by program, and there's codes for it, and they're really the 5,000 series. So when we code something in part of our account codes, in the 5,000, that's instructional. So 512 is elementary school teachers, or elementary school. 515 is secondary school. 521 is a special ed teacher. 517, it's all the 5,000s, is alternative, like Mountain View High School. So elementary and secondary are like the biggies, so I sort of had them, like, but Mountain View, special ed, I just sort of threw and did other. And so here's how we budgeted with those different areas, and where we are with our monthly activity. So this is pretty consistent. So right now, this is just our general fund. There's other spending that goes on, but the general fund, we spend $3 to $3.1, $3.2 million every month. That's pretty consistent, with the bulk of it being salaries and benefits. And here we are year to date as we start tracking on our expenditures. And then you can see on our revenues, you know, we brought in a lot of money this month of February. That's because they gave me a payment of the state right here.
But up until then, you haven't gotten anything, right? Since
Well,
it's been
no,
several months, or-
they give,
Cause you can see that month he got 5 million, but we're up to 22 million on the year. So he's,
Right.
it was just a big chunk in
yeah,
February.
in February. They actually give us a big chunk. Idaho does a good job on that. They give us a big chunk in July, sometimes it comes August, they call it the July payment, where they front fund us. So when I turned my budget in, and when I had that $28 million number, well, transportation doesn't count, so it'd be 23. They take that number and they give me half of that right up front.
Oh, for the upcoming year.
Yeah, to sort of front fund us so you have enough money to get going. They give you 50%. And then I don't really get another payment, a big payment. I get a little bit of payment in November, and then I get a big payment. This is the next one, and then they'll give us a payment in May of some things, and then the final one is actually in July, which gets credited back to June, because that's our end of our fiscal year, where they true up on all your final attendance, did you have a teacher that you put in as a first-year teacher, but they really should have been a third-year teacher on their salary schedule, and we were appealing the process that they made a mistake, and maybe they made it good. Or let's say they said, no, they're a 1 year, and we said they're a 3 year, and we lose the appeal,
And they
They
subtract
will
that.
pull it.
then they'll pull that, it affects your weighted average, and then they true up. So some of that, and they're not big, but that does happen at the end of the year. You don't really know your money till after
After
the year.
you've already spent it all.
In a way, yeah, sort of funny. So that, and you can see the support services, there's instructional support, which is, a different category of where you'd have like a counselor is considered instructional support. They're not an instructor, so they're not charged instruction, so we code them differently. Administrative support, I'm putting, myself, and then principals in there, then district office administrators. Facility support, I'm putting tech in there too, so technology and maintenance and custodial are all in facility support, and then transportation is the bus barn. And so you can see, like in transportation, we're budgeting 1.879 million, we'll be right around there. But if you saw on that other screen, they only gave us 1.4 this year. So they don't fully fund the transportation program either. I mean,
there's a gap there of about $500,000, which is pretty typical. That,
Could get bigger now.
oh, yeah, could be, yeah, exactly.
Diesel prices?
The diesel prices are not, as good as we'd hoped. But, you know, for us, in the overall budget, because of that, the units thing, we are really in good shape. This down here shows, when I talked about fund balance. So this is what I said we were gonna start the year at, 5.6 million in the bank, which is good. We actually started at 6.9, even better. Part of that, the reason we ended up better really was because of that enrollment change again last year. And this just sort of says where we are year to date. Because we get these, you know, there's times of the year you have a lot of money in the bank, and then right now this number will start going down as we spend. We also have other funds, and this is actually a new slide that I gave to the board this month that was requested. And it pairs off a report we have to give to the state at the start of the year for budget. But this sort of has the same general fund information, but it does have the different way we spend money. The other way to look at spending money, and I think this is actually better than the function, is what they call object. Salaries, benefits, purchase services, which is like your utilities, or if you contract with, like we contract with the city for this, resource officers and crossing guards, you know, that's a service. You're paying somebody for the service. You know, supplies and materials, capital outlay is definitely, you know, large ticket items over $5,000 individually, a capital project. Where supplies, if you buy something for $3,000, it's just a big pencil. It's not capitalized, I guess. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course some other little things. And then we have, these are all these federal funds or other funds that we have out there. And I can get more into this later, but we have, and we did some of this last month, you know, we have our plant facility fund, which is levy supported. It's, you know, $1.1 million of revenues, so that's included here. We have our food service fund, so the, you know, child nutrition program is not part of the general fund. That's a part of this. The Title I talked about, the IDEA I talked about. So all those side funds that we have to,
Keeps them.
by law, yeah. Usually what they want for those outside funds, the rule is if it has its designated revenue source, and you need to keep track of it like that with a designated revenue source, then that's it's a special revenue fund, they call it. And so the federal dollars definitely follow that path. Some state funds follow that path, and then, you know, the plant facility fund, since it's a separate levy, you put it there. We have our debt service fund, which pays our bonds, which are getting close to being paid off, but that's its own fund to collect taxes, just to pay the mortgage payment on our last bond, which supported, you know, Twin Lakes Elementary and Timberlake Junior. No, maybe Timberlake Junior's before.
It was before.
It would have been Twin Lakes is our last one, and then a few other things were done. But that's, you know.
So any earmarked money is outside of the general fund.
Yeah, and even sometimes some earmark money does in the general fund, and we have to track it by, you know, tagging it with a special code or something at the end. But definitely some, and a lot of that guidance comes from the state. You know, they have a finance guide we have to follow, or like some of these federal dollars that come through, they'll say, code it to this. And
So that when they audit, they can easily identify that.
yeah, and so
Dollars.
like our fund for the food service fund is Fund 290. So every school district state, their school nutrition program is funded 290. That's the one. My Title I is Fund 251.
Where does like the schools have levies and stuff like that, where does that fall into this whole?
So the levy, we have 3 levies. So our supplemental levy, which is the biggest part of our levy, that goes in the general fund, the supplemental.
So that's part of the
That's part of this
local revenue right here. That's part of the levy. There's some other local revenue. That's the levy, the $9.5 million levy that passed.
Alright, so that
Last
goes in,
spring.
so that brings us up to 36 from the 27, whatever that was on the other page from.
No, that's completely separate money.
That, you're talking about state funding?
The state funding is here.
Yeah, this is the
26,
26.
yeah.
Right.
Right, there's the state.
Yeah,
So this is the local levy that you would actually see in your property tax bill.
right, so all the previous slides that we're talking about,
We're part of this.
well,
They're all, those
they're
were
all
all
part of
state,
that
that was all
number,
state.
and all the
Right.
breakdown with the teachers.
Right,
and
so,
So
correct.
then, now these other areas go and fix
The shortfall.
the shortfalls.
The shortfalls.
and the
Basically, yeah.
different- Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, so, yeah, most of this is fixing the shortfall of the state not fully funding schools. But some of the other local levy here, this is directly related to our plant facility levy and our bond levy. That's what this
Right,
money
so it's
is.
dedicated to those two.
To those two things, you know, and I can't, yeah, like I can't, if we did, let's say we passed another bond for a building. By law, I cannot put it in the general fund and go hire a teacher.
Right.
Yeah, it has to go to the project that we said it was gonna go to, and so
Right.
we actually keep it
Separate.
separate, and, even some districts in Coeur d'Alene, you actually, you know, we do our banking with Wells Fargo right now, because they're about the only commercial bank in town. They're not my favorite, so, but anyway, they're, that's who we're with now, and, but if we ever did pass a bond, we would probably deposit the bond in a different bank. We might go to Columbia or to truly say, when the auditors come or if the board asks, there was no
Full
mixing,
separation.
full separation, correct. Because it's just a better practice.
And we haven't done that because we need to stay with the commercial.
Well, our bond,
Or,
well, yeah, I mean, we were with Wells Fargo before I got here. That was who they're banking with. We could change at some point. And I'm not sure when they had the bonds, because like a lot of times when you get the bond proceeds, you get those early in the game. You sell the bonds, it's like getting a mortgage.
yeah,
You buy your buildings or you have the construction project, and then it's gone. And then you're collecting taxes in a different fund to pay back your mortgage, to pay back your bond payments over 20 years. So the bond itself, like those dollars, when that bond passed in '06, you know, they are spent by 2009 effectively. So you don't have those accounts forever, but it is good to keep them separate to make sure, let's say you were having trouble in the general fund, I mean, that's gotten districts in trouble before.
Yeah.
You know, I know, so you don't wanna, no, that's not good.
so that's the board call. on
That-
banking.
No, that's been an administration call. I think the board, when they went to Wells Fargo, my guess is they did probably a RFP process, even though you don't have to form, it's not like Public Works. But they did do a process and and gave a recommendation to the board at that time saying this is who we'd like to do our banking with. I'm sure that happened. I mean, if we wanted to go through, like, you know, sometime maybe we'll consider, you know, we just.
I mean, it sounds like if you're not really happy with Wells Fargo, maybe,
Yeah.
what's
you
the
know.
process to fix that?
Well, you'd go out and probably find an RFP process and get. what-
We just did it
Did you
not that long
Post
ago
Falls?
in Post Falls, yeah. We moved from when Panhandle State became Columbia, we didn't care for
The
some of
change?
their changes, yeah. So we're with Mountain West now.
Okay.
And, yeah, so we went out for RFP and got some proposals from different banks on, you know, the monthly fees and stuff, so,
And you're.
yeah. And then you can kinda compare and see what their offers are.
It seems like it would, no, just my personal feeling is the more local we stay to support our own community as compared to some big global bank.
Yeah.
You know, we can help our own communities.
No, and I don't disagree with that. Actually, I think, you know, one of the things too, those we do need like well, you don't have to, but you know, the schools,
And here, we are collecting money and need to go make daily deposits, or at least every other day. And so, I mean, you know, in Rathdrum, until I don't even know if we're allowed to go with the credit union, quite honestly.
I know for city, we weren't,
I didn't think we
I don't
were
know
gonna
if it's only our own city policy, or if it's an actual factual thing. I don't think credit unions are.
Yeah, I think there's some rules that I don't think we actually can, but I didn't know. But so really, I only have two options. I have Columbia and Wells Fargo.
There's First Interstate
And
up in
there-
Spirit Lake now.
and there's First
But, I mean,
Interstate-
you still have to go.
Because you gotta stay in same district or what?
No, but it's, you know, if you have someone here making local deposits and they're driving to Coeur d'Alene every day, I know it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But First Interstate, if they're in Spirit Lake and then you do have one in Hayden, that wouldn't be too terrible, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we might, I'm not gonna do it tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a process.
It's a
because
process.
You have to, you have outstanding checks out there from the old bank, and
Yeah, I understand.
Right,
I'm
and
doing
so-
my business, I understand.
yeah, it's.
So anyway, this just shows sort of by the different ways to purchase how much and then I do have the monthly activity. So you can see that if you want to compare on a monthly basis, you know, we're spending that with 3.1 in the general fund, and all other funds combined are, you know, 618. So really, the general fund does really drive the boat, even though I'm not saying those resources aren't important, and then this just totals it all up together. It's a busy sheet. This just sort of general fund by function when I said that, and it's a continuing. Here's the monthly expenditures in green. This is the year to date, and then this is budget. So you'll notice that some lines are longer along the continuum than this. The reason is that our teachers don't really start hitting the books till September for the year. But our administrators hit in August when we start their contracts for the new year, and our facility support, our maintenance guys, they start in July. So because of the way some salaries hit in the year, that's why that continuum isn't right. So because we have to, so what happens is our teachers have earned their whole year pay after June 15th. They work their days, their contract. But we pay them for 12 months. We pay them for July and August. So we accrue what we owe them in June and charge it to the year, even though the money hasn't gone out the door yet, and then the accrual reduces as we actually pay them. So that's why this is always behind, like 2 months. For teachers, and we'll catch up in June, for the teachers. And if you look at object, I do like looking at it this way. I think both ways is always good to look at. And you can see we're probably closer to here for the year, but that's because of that September, because of the teachers. But you can see that on budget and the general fund, you combine these two, the 24 and 8, that's 30. You know, really, us spending on supplies and materials and purchase services and that little bit of insurance and stuff it's just, you know, salaries and benefits drive the boat.
Yeah, it's so small.
Yeah, but you know, and that's similar to, like, you know, a police department, a fire department. I mean, outside of when they're buying their trucks, probably ought to have a different fund, but you know, their budgets for a fire department, I'm sure, you know, Cooney County Fire is going to be 85, 86, the general fund is going to be to pay for their staff. That's enrollment.
I have to
And
go and pick up kids, so I'm gonna.
so I'll leave it at that. I'll show you, thank you, one thing real quick. Go there.
What did we go, 2 weeks or 3 weeks between?
I thought it was it 3 weeks?
3, I think it was.
So I was just gonna show you this, Doug. This is in the board packet every month. And it doesn't break things out by fund. So this is expenditures for March, and so we give this to the board every month in their board packet. And it sort of just goes down, you can take on the different things that we spend our dollars on. I post these on the website, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
If I forget, yell at me and I'll send it, 'cause my memory's going there. But it just sort of shows different, we try to put descriptions there, but it just sort of depends on.
And that's going to the whole, all the schools.
That's
in
all the
district.
schools, the district office, you can see like, like Napa Auto Parts, transportation and maintenance supplies, so
Yeah.
that was the departments, not the schools, but transportation
Yeah.
and, so, yeah, it depends, and there's some pretty big,
Yeah, there's a big 88,000 up there.
Yeah.
Right, and that
Yeah,
was-
44.
Yeah, I guess.
So, right, and going to a Vista, right?
Lights on.
Yeah.
What a big-
All those kids leaving the dang lights on.
So like, one of our big ones every month is we contract our food service to Chartwells. We don't have our own staff. I mean, so, since, that's been the case since 1999. So obviously they run the program and we
You pay for it.
pay for them, but we get revenues from the National School Lunch Program, from USDA. We get those revenues, which pays that bill. I could have got those revenues and paid a staff member, said I had the service. But I'll send you the link, because then you can go look back at, there's more months posted than just this, but this is what was this
Yeah,
there.
okay, thanks.
Anyway, yeah, when you want to look at some stuff like that.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks for your time. So when do we want to try next?
3 weeks would be March 31st. Do we wanna meet, it would be a Thursday at 5:30 again.
That's spring break.
Oh,
Yes.
you're right, it is, yep.
The week before or the week after?
I would
Either-
probably wanna make sure that you had answers from
The state?
the state before we met again, don't you think, or
Yeah.
was there more that you wanted to go over?
No, I had a lot of state stuff, but it's pretty bug. I mean, I go over it. I mean, it was like the information the state, finance director Julie Overy shared with us as business managers.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
we could do some of that, but if we had some of the actual state worksheets that they have, I could say, hey, this is how much we're budgeting for staff this year. Or, I have to actually have the number, but I don't know if they'll have it, but it'd probably be better than afterwards then.
Okay, so you wanna get it on the 24th of March?
Well, the 24th, I don't know if I'll have that
Okay.
info. But we could, if you just guys have other topics, and I can send out an email with some topics, or we could do it the
The 7th.
7th.
7th, but for me.
7th.
Okay, let's do the 7th.
All right, thank you. It was good to
Thank
meet all
you.
of you.
Good
Nice
meeting
meeting
you,
you.
yes.
Yes, good to see you. This,
If I put this on my calendar, I'm gonna have it on there twice, if you send it out and I put it on there, so I'll just wait for a year.
Okay, the 7th, 5:30, I will do it.
I'll wait for it to hit the board calendar. Cause then otherwise I'll have duplicates all over my calendar.
Yeah, you'll have
I'm learning to,
3.
yeah. I'll have one from me, one from you, one from